What's up, guys? I am back and I will be bringing to you a full chest workout from this past Monday. This workout was a neurological and hypertrophy centered workout. Did some higher weights, lower reps, but then transitioned back more toward the 8 to 12 hypertrophy rep ranges at the end. So you'll see all the execution videos to follow with the cueing, and I just want to go over how I selected my exercises and why I did. And one thing I do remember from this workout was I really did a good job priming before I even got into my exercises. So doing warm-ups to warm up my shoulders with the band and really clearing out room in my AC joint to allow myself to move freely within my active range of motion. So I remember the solid priming, getting my chest muscles warmed up following my shoulder warm up, really just doing some isometric contractions in the lengthen and shorten, and getting myself really stable and getting myself ready to push maximal loads. So as for exercises, the first exercise I decided to go with was an incline dumbbell press at about a 25-30 degree angle. I wasn't really able to precisely measure what that was, but 2 working sets with that, working between 6 and 8 reps, and then I followed that up with 1 back off set of about 10 reps. Then after that I went to a reverse band incline Smith machine press, again decently low angle, about 25 degrees. And the reasoning for the reverse band, as opposed to just doing my dumbbell press to overload, at this point I wanted to be able to create a more even environment in terms of the strength curve, taking off a little bit of that tension at the bottom and allowing myself to push through and be able to not bury myself when I know that if I just had a little bit of help at the bottom, I would be able to push through for a few more reps and try to get as close as I can to an even failing point. So again, 2 sets with that, and then I did 2 back off sets. Really great output coming from this exercise during this workout. So I stuck with 2 working and then 2 back offs, did not with the same weight. Hit 1 back off for about 10 and then did another back off a little bit lighter, aiming for about 12. Following that, I went to a slight decline dumbbell press. Again, still pretty heavy, still within that 6 to 8 rep range, and just again a few warm-up sets before that, and still great output. I select the slight decline for a little bit of a healthier angle of the shoulder, not packing myself against the bench straight up and down where I could really overload the joints with the dumbbells at the top. Being on a slight decline, it allows my shoulder to drift a little bit more forward, and I'm able to press and even match up accurately with more pec fibers that way to develop the lower portion of the chest. And then after that, I went to the hammer strength mid chest press, did 2 sets of that with 2 plates, just plates. And after that, instead of doing a traditional back off, just peeling off weight, noticing that I had a steep drop off at the top of the range, struggling to lock out reps at the end of my set, what I did was, instead of the traditional back off, I took a plate off, but then added band resistance. You'll see that in the exercise execution portion, and that really just made it more difficult at the top. So I focused on contracting hard out of the bottom, but then pushing through that additional tension at the top to hopefully by the next time I program this exercise back in, I should be able to finish those reps that prevented me from getting the full contraction and extending my set in this workout. And then finally, I went with a staple crossover movement for me, a seated crossover on the military bench. You'll see I have the foam roller set up to keep my scapula nice and stable on this movement. And 2 sets of this, about 8 to 10 reps, working a little bit more of a higher rep range than the press, but really not too much. And the second set of that would be a neurological overload set. That's a triple drop set, just to extend the set as far as I can, get maximum time under tension, and be able to fully exhaust the shortened range. So this was a chest workout. Also did 10-minute cycle of abs. Didn't record any of that, but I'll give you guys a little bit of background on what I do with ab training. I'll select 3 exercises. 1 exercise for the upper portion of the abs, 1 exercise for the lower portion, and 1 for the obliques. And what I will do is I will cycle them through, no rest, the only rest being me transitioning from one exercise to another. And I'll cycle this through for 10 minutes, going one exercise after another, but also keeping really close gauge on my tempo and holding my contractions for anywhere between 2 and 3 seconds while expelling the air out of my diaphragm and really squeezing the abs. So the 3 exercises I selected were cable crunches with a rope for upper abs, a captain's chair knee raise for the lower abs, and then a decline mason broomstick twist for the obliques. And like I said, rotate through those exercises as many times as you can. No rest in between for 10 minutes, focusing on contractions and expelling air. And not much more than that really needs to be done. Of course, there is individual cases depending on your goals, depending on pre-contest versus off-season training. A lot of that stuff will come down to how much, how often, how much you could really handle when training abs. But you'll see the chest workout. Again, guys, I'll have probably a back workout coming up from this week, and I'll have that posted toward the end of the week, as well as a Q&A session. I have a couple good questions lined up on training, nutrition, and supplements as well, covering some bases with some specifics that people are wondering about and how I would be able to structure that individually, as well as give an answer that would suit most people. Like I've said before, many things within fitness and training are very individualistic, but I will always do my best to give an answer that will fit the majority of people, bearing any difference in their goals. So guys, thank you for watching the chest workout, and of course, leave a like if you enjoy it. And so the first exercise to kick off this chest day is an incline dumbbell press. Very poor camera angle on this one by myself here, but what you could see is the importance of not dipping too low and taking the shoulders to an unnatural position. So a lot of people think that that's not a full range of motion, but when training the chest, we're just looking for an active range of motion. And I did 2 working sets of the incline dumbbell press, working a little bit heavier weight, overloading between 6 and 8 reps. So I selected 100-pound dumbbells and hit 2 sets of about 6 with a few partials at the end, no spot, so I had to accommodate for that as well. But as you can see, keeping total control on the way down, using an incline that is moderate, not too sharp but not too low either. I have the bench selected on the 20-degree angle, but I also have a platform. You can see the green and black platform on the back to get myself a little bit of a sharper angle without being too steep. So following the 2 working sets with the 100-pound dumbbells for 6 reps, I went on to a back off set with the 80-pound dumbbells. And what I've been noticing recently with the selection of the weights for my back off sets, it tends to be the same weight that I would use for my final working set, where I would only perform 1 or 2 reps to really get my body acquainted to pushing heavier loads and getting the nervous system primed for my working sets. So the 80s were my last warm-up and were actually used for my back off as well for about 10. Then I moved on to Smith machine reverse band incline press, and this is a great exercise for many reasons. It's very stable, as always pushing against the bench, but also the bar moving in a fixed range of motion, which allows you to keep in perfect line with your humerus and the bar, as well as adding the reverse band to take some of that tension off at the bottom and allow the strength curve to be more even and complete this exercise more without getting buried out of the hole. So again, I went pretty heavy on this. I was actually satisfied with the weight I was able to press, going up to 225 for about 6 reps, 2 working sets again. And overall, you'll see in this chest day, I did dip into the lower rep ranges, doing a little bit more neurological stuff to really get my nervous system primed and ready for heavy weights, and then maybe backing off those loads and focusing on rep overload for the next few chest workouts. So this is the second set of 225 on the Smith machine reverse band. And then following those 2, I actually did 2 back off sets. I was really feeling great output in my chest in this exercise, so I wanted to keep the weights, but again, I knew I wasn't going to be able to push the same load going more than 2 sets, so I was okay with that. and I backed off this set down to 185, where I hit for about 10 reps. And then after that, I actually did another back off set, which you'll see in a second, of 165 for about another 10 or 11 reps. And that's one thing that when I do program an exercise, if I know I'm getting really good, really strong contractions on a particular exercise in a workout, I won't move on. I may not keep the same loads due to not being able to push for the same reps without a substantial drop off, but that's where the drop down sets come into play. So you could work on different forms of overload, getting your reps in, but also focusing on your execution and making sure you're contracting consciously out of the bottom and controlling the weight for the entire range of motion, some things that might go a little bit unnoticed with a heavier load. Then I moved on to a slight decline dumbbell bench press, and I like going on a slight decline because it is a little bit more natural range of motion for my shoulders, and as well I like to be able to press the dumbbells a little bit more out versus straight up and down, which I've noticed I'm able to line up with the middle and lower pec fibers more dead on, more evenly, and that's been an area of my chest that I've been looking to develop for a while now. Didn't get the second set on video for that. Then I moved on to the hammer strength chest press, and I started and went with 2 working sets, 2 plates per side, controlling my eccentrics and getting explosive. This is a very good braced exercise, and I went back to Core Fitness to train with this machine. I've been missing this in my programming, and this is a good exercise that has pretty much any placement within the workout. You could start with it, you could go with second or third. I actually did it fourth, and you'll see how I had the fat grip set up on the hammer strength machine. That's a really great tip that I learned to help save your shoulders. Some people feel that they're packed into a machine to try to unrack the weight on rep 1, and it's an unnatural range of motion. So allowing the fat grips to sit on the machine, you don't have to bury your shoulders too far back into the pad. You're able to unrack, they'll simply just fall off and hit the ground, and you can proceed and do your set. So judging from my first 2 sets on the hammer strength with just plate resistance, I noticed that I was having a pretty good drop off in my reps at the top of the range of motion, struggling to completely lock out. So what I did, instead of just backing off with weight, I went down to 1 plate and added band resistance. So I'm really trying to accentuate the top of the range of motion and be able to press right through that band resistance, as well as having the plates work against me the entire time. So again, I stuck with 2 back off sets with 1 plate and the band. And this is a really good movement. You could do this first if you really want to pre-exhaust the top portion of the range of motion for hammer strength, or you could do it like I did afterward with a lighter weight to get more work in the top range of motion, especially near the end of your chest workout where you're really trying to exhaust the shortened range. And the final chest exercise I have is a mid crossover. You can't see it behind me, but I have a foam roller tied to this military bench to be able to keep my scapula stable, even more so, and keep my shoulders safe. So really on this exercise, what I'm trying to do is think less about bringing my hands together and more about bringing my humerus to my sternum. Allowing myself to adduct the humerus is going to get the complete contraction. Some people will think too much about moving the weight with their hands, and the problem with that is people will tend to internally rotate their shoulders, and internally they'll lose the tension on their chest when they get to the absolute top and lose that top squeeze. There you can see the foam roller that I have set up on the bench, and I did 2 sets on this. First set, just a set of 8 to 10. And then the second set here, which is shown, I prescribed a neurological overload set, which is a triple drop. So simply just going down by 10 pounds each time, going from 50, 40, 30 to 20, just making sure I could get as many reps as possible. Got 8 on my first set, and within the drops, averaging about 4 each time. But really keeping all those cues in mind that I said earlier, keeping myself braced, not allowing myself to get too stretched in the shoulders without having my scapula leave that foam roller and leave the pad of the bench, but also when I'm really fatiguing the top or the shortened range in this, I'm preventing my shoulders from going into internal rotation and losing tension at the top and not getting the peak contraction of the pecs. So this is the last exercise of the chest portion of the workout. I finished up with a 10-minute circuit of abs, which I did not get on video. But this is a typical chest workout with a focus on some neurological overload, working more in the 6, 7, or 8 rep range as opposed to an 8 to 10 more hypertrophy rep range. Mixing my methods as I go along and still adding those intensifiers in where I feel I could really extend a set, keep that maximum tension, and really exhaust a range of the strength curve. And that's what I'm doing here with the pec flies. I hope you guys enjoyed this chest workout. There will be more workouts, full workouts to come on my YouTube channel, as well as a future Q&A session. I already have a few interesting topics lined up in terms of training, nutrition, and supplementation. Just some kind of basic points that will apply to the majority of people that you could go ahead and apply right into your training or your diet protocols. And you guys should really check that out. I think we'll have a lot of valuable information to be tossed around there.